Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's Pete Carmasino with Chaikin Analytics. I'm the Chief Market Strategist here. Thanks for joining me on our halftime show here at StockCharts TV. Really appreciate you tuning in and appreciate any feedback you can send our way. Thanks again. So what's going on? We're just going to go over the market a little bit today. We've got a few things on the radar. I'm going to be looking at the top Dow 30 names, the Dow Jones Industrial Average names. It's about 4 or 5 names that are bullish in that specific index. And then there's one that's very popular. I'm sure you'll know it when I bring it up. And it's a neutral positive. But I just wanted to go over those names today as a way to kind of look at some different index setups and look at some of the names inside of those index levels that are, that are looking bullish, that are rated bullish on our system. And then we'll swap in between the StockCharts platform, ACP platform, and the Chaikin Analytics charts as well to give you an idea of what the power gauge looks like. And we'll dive into some of those levels on those 4 or 5 names that we're talking about. But just an overview of the markets today. We've got equities starting off slower today in the morning and then bounced nicely right into our areas of support and resistance that we've been calling out. It looks great. I mean, we had a great week last week, one of the best weeks in 3 months. And it's nice to see that some sectors are performing as expected. The financials are looking pretty strong, obviously, with higher interest rates. And even a name like Morgan Stanley, somebody put a target price on it. I forget exactly which firm, might have been Citigroup, put a target price on it at 105. We're calling that as a breakout level. I think, when we looked at that a few weeks ago, it's been meandering up and down, up and down. They reported great numbers. They've got multiple facets of revenue. And I think that stock looks interesting as well. But I mean, overall, we saw slower demand, or slower growth, I should say, in China. Their GDP was down, and overall growth looked to be much slower than expected. But I mean, look, that's part of the issues with higher energy prices and supply chain setups. That's what's kind of happening, right? So, that's where we are. And right now we've got our own issues, right? We've got to worry about our own inflation. We've got to worry about energy prices here, shortages of supply and energy, not only just energy, but other aspects of our production cycle, chemicals, plastics, everything that goes into making products. Hopefully the, supply chain opens up a little bit as they sort of navigate through what's happening out there in the ports off of LA. But as that kind of ramps up, they're having trouble finding workers basically to unload and maybe even deliver. And then when you get them in the product in a truck, energy prices are spiking. So we've got our own issues here. So let's look at those top 5 names in the Dow Jones and dive into the power gauge. And hopefully this can give you a bit of a clue about, how to use the system, again, marrying fundamentals and technicals together. Okay, we're here at the ACP platform, and the name that I was kind of alluding to in the beginning of the video was Apple. And since this is sorted by symbol, we're going to start with Apple first, although I wanted it to be last, but that's okay. And Apple is sitting, and a lot of people forget that it's part of the Dow Jones average. It's been in there for several years, and it helps obviously kind of, maintain that tech exposure as well as Salesforce does and some other names. But we'll look at this, specific name because it is a neutral positive. And I want you to understand that, because if you're using the ACP platform and the Power Gauge plugin, you're just seeing the neutral negative. But let me help you kind of understand it from our aspect here. And if I go to our charts and I look at Apple, you can see, obviously, it's the neutral positive here, right? And in this area down here, we call that the power band. And that shows us that it was bullish at some point. And the reason it was bullish here and not here, where it is currently, is because in this category, in this period of time, it was above the long-term trend, okay? Now, in tech hardware and storage, where Apple falls and lives inside of that, specific industry, the way it's categorized on our data that we purchase, it's considered a weaker industry and a weaker trend. However, I mean, it's Apple. We know it's more than just a tech and hardware and storage company. It's just a multi-line tech company from all aspects, way above tech and hardware and storage. So when we look at this, we see the power gauge is obviously neutral positive, but it's only that because it's below our long-term trend, the way we look at it. Now, once it closes above here, it'll turn back to bullish, and you might see that here, right? So when you do, if you're following Apple, which a lot of people do, know that it's above that trend line that we consider an important trend line, right? That's our 200 double exponential moving average here. The way we calculate it, it's a special calculation. Anyway, point being is when you look at this, we can see that you've got all of the earnings, technicals, and experts are on the bullish setup, but the financials are kind of being weighed down mostly because of valuation, right? We know sitting where this stock sits with this amazing market cap, but an incredible amount of revenue, was still with a 28 PE. The valuation is a little rich. There's no doubt about that. But because if we get any kind of upgrade in financials and it gets above the long-term trend, it'll definitely be bullish. It'll be bullish there anyway. But once we see an upgrade in financials, it's just it feels better to be in a name like that. Okay. So the next one is American Express, a very bullish setup as well. And you can see where, we've got this consolidation across this top here. And I'll just put the crosshairs on here. I mean, talk about something that's maybe recoiling and ready to really move higher. It's pretty amazing. So I'll start at the list here at the top. Again, this is the Dow Jones average. I'll look at the ETF here. And because we've got the average up, you can see there's 7 bullish names. And this is what the index looks like from the ETF standpoint. And then in our system, it shows you the top names. So there's American Express. We'll take a look at that really quick. Again, it's oversold. It's bullish. I like the setup here. I mean, it's kind of interesting. You've got earnings coming out this week, so just pay attention to that. And everything is looking pretty interesting. I'd like to see it move higher. Now, not every financial company that reports has gangbuster, sentiment after the fact, but it's also about guidance. We got to be careful with that, and we got to maintain, our discipline coming into earnings. So the next one on the list that I wanted to look at is CRM, Salesforce. We know this one. If you don't know it, it's, a popular management platform for all types of sales pipelines and all types of companies in different aspects, right? From data storage to, communication and marketing campaigns. There's multiple levels of technology here. Again, this stock's been on a tear. It's been looking great. And if we go to our system, we can see what the power gauge is telling us. Again, financials are a little weak, right? But earnings and experts are strong where technicals are neutral. Now, this is just coming, forming a nice breakout here. I like the oversold level a few times. It's reacted to that. It's a little rich here. If it pulled back, it would be an interesting setup. But let's look at financials and find out what's happening here. So debt to equity is actually in a bullish state. Price to book and price to sales aren't that bad. So the valuation isn't really what's holding it back. It looks like the return on equity and the cash flow, from our standpoint, is what's giving that sort of a bearish financial setup. So any improvement here obviously would, improve the power gauge as well. And then the next one is JPMorgan. As I said about American Express, not every financial name that has reported has had, a gangbuster price activity after the fact, and JPMorgan was one of them. And so it typically sells off after earnings and then kind of regains. But again, it looks like it's holding, this last recent swing high, which is right around that 165 level. And if I go and take a look, we've got a bullish rating on it here. Financials are also holding this one back, but it's more from a valuation standpoint. Even though long-term debt to equity is bearish, they've got the free cash flow to support it. They can manage debt pretty well. And yet with a low PE and nice yield, it's a great little setup here. I think it looks interesting. Again, around these levels, we're not completely oversold, but we're getting there. And I think it's definitely one, to consider and keep on the radar. But that's what you're looking at. When you see that weak financial, there's 5 subcategories inside of the financial rating. I just want you to be aware of that when you see it. And hopefully, it's a little bit more understandable when you take a look at it from this aspect. And the last one I wanted to go over was really the old standard out there, Microsoft, which has been, a popular tech name for many, many years, but recently has really been on an excellent growth tear. And so this is very bullish. You can see the setup in experts and technicals are already very bullish. Earnings is strong in the bullish setup, and financials are neutral. Let's just take a look at that real quick. Microsoft's up top here. And again, because it's very bullish, it's ranked by rating first. And you kind of see what I'm getting at here. Free cash flow, again, the way we extrapolate that is in a bearish category, actually very bearish right now. Debt to equity is neutral, and price to book a little rich, where price to sales is neutral. So again, it's a little rich, but the setup is there. The relative strength never broke down, even when the stock did, and we downgraded it to a neutral plus, right? That's kind of what Apple looks like today. I'll go back to that as a quick example. See how it goes underneath that long-term trend, and we downgrade it. So that's more of a trend downgrade than it is a quality downgrade, so to speak. But again, going back to Microsoft, when you see and kind of understand the power gauge from that perspective, I think it looks, it tells a very strong story. Let's go to experts real quick on Microsoft. You can see, everything is pinned. No one's shorting it. Insiders are buying it. Analysts love it. Relative strength strong in the industry, and the estimate trend is enormous. So again, you've got a pretty good tailwind from the expert standpoint. And then if I look at technicals, a bit of a mixed bag. Recent trend has been choppy. We know that, but everything else is bullish or better. So again, just different ways to kind of perceive and use that power gauge when you're looking at the big names and, let's say, a big index like the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Okay, everybody, that wraps up this week's halftime show here on StockCharts TV. Thanks again for tuning in. I appreciate it. I hope this is helpful. Leave me some feedback on the YouTube channel once it gets up there from StockCharts TV. And when you take a look at it, take some value from it. Let me know what you like about it, what you didn't like about it, and we'll try to make this better and better each week. Thanks again for tuning in. Have a great week, and we'll be back to you next week with more Chaikin Analytics on StockCharts TV. Thanks again.
Hey guys, Dave Keller here with StockCharts.com. Thanks so much for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, and we hope you did, hit the like button right below. Also, we have so much new content every day. Consider subscribing to the channel. Just hit the subscribe button in the video or right below. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Have a fantastic day.